So for this Windy Wednesday, I thought I would try something different because playing a little etude is really nice, but it's not really a way that everyone can learn how to do it unless you're just listening and you pick it up instinctively. There's really a method to learning the art of phrasing. So I thought I would show you what I do when I look at something for the first time. I'm going to show you a piece and I'm going to play it for the first time, sight reading, and then I'm going to work on a couple things and then I'll play it again polished so you can kind of understand what the process is of practicing phrasing. So the piece we're looking at is called Why Do I Weep for Thee? And I just chose this one because it was the next in the sequence. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to number the measures just so you have a reference point if you want to do the same thing, if you happen to have the same music. I'll do this really quickly. Okay, so I'm looking at this and I see that the tempo marking is andante con tristesso, which I believe means with sadness, which that would make sense because it's called Why Do I Weep for Thee. So a style marking here, dolce, so I'm going to be playing this with sadness and sweetly. I'm looking at some dynamics. I see that there's a piano and there's a crescendo that doesn't tell us where it goes, but I'm assuming probably just mezzo forte, not that loud at all because it seems to be a pretty sad song. And going straight back to pianissimo for the rest of the piece. So there's that. I see a lot of breath marks in this edition. I tend to skip these. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to see if I can make my breath last for 4 measures because I really don't think it's necessary to breathe for myself every 2 measures. I have enough air, I think, as a player that I can breathe a little less often. 1, 2, 3. I actually... So what I'm seeing here, I'm looking at measures 9 through 14. There is a measure here that has a breath mark, and there's a crescendo, and I'm assuming that this is the peak of the crescendo. And so what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to do some editing because I'm assuming that Jean-Baptiste Arban did not put these breath marks in. I'm going to put my own breath mark in right here. And the reason I'm doing that is because this note at measure 12, it looks like it's the climax of the piece. There's a climax and then there's a big fall. So I might as well, I think, just prepare for the fall, leave people hanging. And that's what I'm thinking. I don't think I need to do this, so I won't breathe there. Bleh. And then there's those things. Okay, so I see some dotted rhythms, lots of dotted rhythms, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, so I'll just be aware of that. I see some slurs as well as some phrase markings, so I'll just be sure to play as smoothly as I can, I think. Looks like there's a little bit of tonguing, a little bit, but not a huge amount. Again, I feel like a lot of these are just suggestions. So let's play it. So I'm gonna play this for the first time, and this is real, this is sight reading. I think I'll play it for the first time. I'll make another file once it is polished. I'll make another video separate, so if you wanted to play along or if you wanted to listen to it or review it just by itself, you can do that too. So this is Why Do I Weep for Thee? Sadly, with sadness, B flat major, not minor, even though it deceptively, you would think so, but no, it's major key. Okay, here we go. I think if I were playing that in an ensemble situation, I would have survived. Here's what I noticed about this, and I'm just gonna go. There isn't a whole lot at 17 that tells you how that should be played, and that's kind of a standalone phrase. What I'm thinking is maybe, I'm not sure what to do with that exactly. I feel like that should have kind of its own shape, like a final, like, oh, maybe I'm not gonna weep. And then, no, I am gonna weep at the end. Maybe something like that. I think that this breath mark here was a good call. I really think that worked. I think that worked as a crescendoing phrase. I can work a little harder on these notes to get them to not be so pinched, just because it's kind of a high note for a flugelhorn, but that's no excuse. And I noticed, as a player, I think I could have made more of this rallentando, but I think in order for that rallentando to be effective, a lot of this stuff could have had more motion. Not emotion, but motion, like energy, especially in these long notes. There's nothing telling you to do this, but what I see when I see a long note in the middle of a phrase, and I know there's a breath mark, but I'm just trying to just humor me on this. When I see a long note in the middle of a phrase, I think, where is this note going? It's, especially if it's in the middle, it's waiting for the next note. It's kind of anticipatory. So when I see this, I'm gonna kind of give it a little bit of a crescendo, and I think I might have played that the first time, but I'm gonna make a little more of it this next time. I think this pianissimo can be taken with a grain of salt, again, just because of the range. So that means that this has to be much more. Because of the range here, I'll play it a little bit louder. I will also, I think when I get to here, do a little crescendo, just because it has to feel like it's going somewhere. Otherwise, it just fades out and becomes really boring and not the kind of weeping that is exciting or dramatic, but the kind of weeping that makes you really just not even have any emotions at all. So, with that said, here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to play this. I'm going to try to have it a little more polished. I'm going to give those dotted half notes a little more energy, especially toward the back end, so that the next phrase kind of comes naturally, the next part of the phrase comes naturally. I'm going to take that pianissimo on measure, right before measure 13, a little bit louder so that the range is supported. And I'm going to treat 17 and 18 a little bit more like an echo, and I'm going to try 19, 20, 21 to be like a final sob. Like, I am sad. Or maybe, why do I weep for thee? That's why. Like, 17 and 18 are like, I figured out why I was sad. And then 19, 20, 21 are like, okay, now I know. So here we go. Let's make this interesting. Let's play the right note this time. interesting. I'm going to look at some intervals that were not quite not quite there. Like I'm looking specifically between the A to the D. I measure 20. Now I'm looking at 19, so I'm going to kind of patch that all together. That's kind of hard. Practicing, I'll just do that like 3 or 4 times just to make sure I really have it before I do the final recording. One more go. This time my goal is to get all the pitches correct. Like, shouldn't that be the goal at the beginning? Probably, but usually when I'm looking at the art of phrasing stuff, I'm just trying to figure out what the interesting part of this, what's interesting about this piece. So maybe it's the notes. Maybe it's not. Should probably play them right though. Okay, last time. I'm going to link at the end of this screen, I'm going to just put a link to the polished product because that needs to kind of settle in my mind and my face for a little bit before I put the polished product out there. But that's the process pretty much. That's how I practice making the phrasing interesting. So if this kind of video is interesting for you and you want to learn more about how to phrase things, how to phrase certain rhythms or certain exercises in this book, please let me know. I would be happy to do a video on that. I really enjoy discussing phrasing. Leave me a comment and I will try to find it. I like this. So until next time, stay mindful, stay musical, stay out of trouble.